Hello, Isn't It Romantic Book Club? We are so excited today to be able to talk to Julie Ann Walker. My name is Diana Muñoz Stewart. I am an author of Romantic Suspense for the Strong of Heart. My Black Ops Confidential series is out now. The last one, The Cost of Honor, just came out. And my next series is coming out, The Bad Legacies series is coming out in August, Broken Promises. So, hi, everyone.
Hi, and I'm Sharon, and I also write for Source Books with Diana and Jennie and Abbie, and I write the Deadly Force series. The third book just came out, and you can see it in February, and I'm working on the novella right now, which will be out soon. And I'm just really excited to be here tonight because I love Julie Ann, and I'm looking forward to talking to her.
Hi, everyone. I'm Abbie Roads. Here's my little bundle of books that I have out. Well, wait, it's hard to aim this, isn't it?
I know. I know.
And then here's the one I swear I'm trying to work on. Just COVID stuff has been
I love the cover of that one, Abbie.
Yes, thank you. And so my books are what I call dangerously dark romance. They're sort of like an episode of Criminal Minds with a little bit of paranormal meets a romance novel with a happily ever after.
With kissing.
Yes, lots of kissing. And sexy times.
Yes.
Nice. I am Jennie Marts, and I write romantic comedy, cozy mysteries, and Western romance. So I write some cowboys who play hockey. And here's my Creedence, Colorado series right here. Look at those sexy cowboys.
Woo, they are sexy.
And I have a new book coming out in the same town. So Creedence, Colorado still, but this one is a horse rescue series.
Oh, I love that cover.
My wounded hero, and this is starting the Creedence Horse Rescue series, and this comes out in June, so it's almost here.
Gosh,
so excited!
When in June, Jennie?
June 30th.
Okay,
fantastic. So
wait.
And so Julie Ann Walker is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. Julie loves to travel the world looking for views to compete with her deadlines. And if those views happen to come with the blue sky and sunshine, all the better. When she's not writing, Julie enjoys camping, hiking, cycling, fishing, cooking, and petting every dog that walks by her. And I have to apologize because I had your other bio, but I seem to have misplaced it.
That's perfectly fine. That's a great bio. That's the dog person. I just told everybody. I said, you may see my dog. He is roaming around. He was just sitting beside me whining, and I had to shoo him. And he kept his tail between his legs and went and threw himself on the couch. So we'll see how long that lasts.
So is your dog enjoying you being home through the?
He does love it. He's getting lots of walks. So he is an Akita and Shepherd mix. So he's very furry, but he doesn't do well in the heat. So I just shaved him, and he's embarrassed. Usually he loves to get on his harness and go for a walk, but he feels like he's naked now. So every time I get on the harness, his little ears go down like, I didn't take him outside when I don't have any clothes on. And so, but he does much better in the heat when he's not wearing his fur.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too hot to have a dog that furry.
Right.
My daughter has a husky, and they had him in Miami for a while. It's just
that would be miserable.
It's too much. He before I just broke down and shaved him. He would walk from shady spot to shady spot, and then pancake out on his stomach and just pant like I can't handle it.
Right.
It's too hot here.
Well, it's so awesome to have you here, and we really enjoyed this book, this first volume of this series, and I have to say, we've all noticed that it was different. It was different from what you've done before. Like, I've read the Black Knight series, so we're excited to talk to you. I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
I know. I told you before we started, Julian. I absolutely loved this book.
Good. I'm so glad.
I think part of it was that because I didn't have any expectations whatsoever. Like I went in cold. I didn't even really read the back. I just jumped in. And totally taken back.
I was a little nervous about it because, you know, like the readership definitely is the romantic suspense fans, and they like that third person narrative and told from multiple points of view. I tell from usually 5 points of view, and, you know, they usually get to be inside the head of the villain. And I usually, my characters are in their 30s and sometimes even 40s. And so I kind of flipped everything on its head, and I told what I would consider it's almost a coming of age, new adult romance, contemporary romance, almost like a family saga too. And it's 3 books long. The story took 3 books to tell. So not your traditional trilogy in that sense. And I told it in first person from 3 points of view. The reader never gets to be in the head of the villain.
No, but it definitely works for you. And I think that one of the characters, if you can call it, is New Orleans itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've lived in New Orleans for short periods of time, a couple of times, and I've vacationed there numerous times. And I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and then most of my adult life I have been in Chicago, 13 years in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And I can tell you that every time I go back to New Orleans, I step out of the plane or step out of the airport, and I'm like, oh, here's home.
Wow.
And so, right. And so it's weird to kind of find a place that feels like home, even though you've only lived there for short periods of time, a couple of times. I don't know what it is. I think it's just that New Orleans has its own culture. It has its own sort of cadence. It has its own rhythms.
You did a great job of bringing that to life.
All of it appeals to me. I love the food. I love the music. I love the flamboyance. I love the grittiness. I love the stray cats. I love all of it. Like, I just walk around and I'm like, yes, yes, love, heart, yes, yes, yay, New Orleans. And so I just decided that no better place to set a series. And this was sort of the series of my heart, so I set it in the place of my heart.
So where did this come from? Because it's such a deviation from your other books. Like, how did this idea come to you? Like,
I don't know how it works, inspiration works for you guys, but it just sort of strikes me out of the blue. And I was contracted for 7 romantic suspense books. And I can usually, if I'm lucky, because I'm a slow writer, if I'm lucky, I can write 2, maybe 2.5 books a year. And so the inspiration for this In Moonlight Memories trilogy hit me right after I'd signed the contract, a 7-book contract. And so I just thought, nah, crap, like there it is. It's this idea, and it was very exciting to me. I wanted to start writing it, but I was contracted out to write 7 more romantic suspense books. So for the next 3 years, gosh, I don't even know if I should admit this, but I would wake up and I would need to write my next Black Knights Incorporated book or my next Deep Six book. But I would pop out of bed in the morning, and the first thing that would enter my mind was a snippet of dialogue or a scene for the In Moonlight Memories trilogy. And so I'd grab a book and I would write it down. So this trilogy was really about 4 years in the making, 4 years from the time that I had the idea until I could actually open up my Word document and type the first word. So it's a long time coming. And where the inspiration came from, who knows? I knew I wanted to set a series in New York. I knew I wanted to try first person or writing in first person because I'd never tried it, but I like to read it. And everything just kind of fell from there.
was it like sort of percolating in the back of your mind as you're like writing these other books? Like it's like the front of your brain is writing these ones, but on the back of your brain, you're like clicking on it.
And absolutely. And I would find myself writing one of the Black Knights novels or writing one of the Deep Six novels, and an idea would spark, and I would stop what I was doing and get out my In Moonlight Memories notebook and write it down. So it was always there, which I was a little nervous. That being the case, I kept thinking, oh gosh, is this sort of seeping into the current writing? Because I'm not, like, I don't feel like I'm solely invested in the book that I'm working on. Half of my brain, or at least a smidgen of my brain, is working on this other project. But the readers didn't come at me and were like, what happened to Julianne Walker? You know, I'm so disappointed in these last 3 Black Knights Incorporated books. Thank goodness. Woo! Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Well, it certainly got my heart going. So if your heart was in it, it definitely got my heart going.
Thank you.
I just feel like I'm on edge. Like, what's going to happen?
Well, I started crying. I started crying at the scene where she handed over she went out to see Luke at the swamp house and she was giving him the letters.
Right.
And he finds his journal.
Right.
From reading his journal entry to the end of that book, I wept. Like, I don't know why. I just started crying and I couldn't stop crying. And I got to the end and I was just, and it's that feeling like, oh my gosh, it's the second book. Okay, then I'm okay. I'm
Right.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things too where you're like, thank God that second book is out. You know,
Oh, I know.
Right. Exactly, which is why I released all 3 books at once, is so readers could just jump right from the first volume into the second volume. There was no wait, because it really is, you guys have read the first volume. There's no really satisfactory end to the first volume. It just kind of ends on everything that readers hate, which is a cliffhanger.
There's a kiss. I was like kind of happy with the kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was the kiss. Yeah.
I know. But for us,
have you had any backlash from readers about that, the cliffhanger thing?
So the funny thing is I got a book bub for the first volume, and the only backlash I have gotten are for people who got the first volume for free, even though it says volume 1 and it very clearly is part of a trilogy. They got it for free, and then they're upset that if they want to finish the story, they have to pay for it. So yeah, I've gotten some nasty emails about, you want me to pay to read your story? No.
Oh my God.
Book us on the first book and then ask us to spend money on the second and third. Right.
You had me hooked from the very first, I think it was in the first or second paragraph, where you're quoting Metallica.
Right. Yes.
I'm a huge metalhead, and I love that too.
Like, I took it away from my Black Knights Incorporated roots completely, because you know, a little bit of yourself always seeps into all of your books. So yeah.
Well, and that prologue just was one of those like, okay, you can't read that thing and then not keep going.
Right.
It was such like, you have to just read this book.
Good. I'm so glad. I'm really proud of it. It's probably like I said, it was the project of my heart, and I am most proud of these books. These are the books. Well, particularly you guys have read it. This you know, it doesn't have the steaminess of some of my other romantic suspense, and so these are the books that my mother trots out to her church group. As, look at this, my daughter's a writer.
Yeah, but there's so much tension. There's so much sexual tension in it. You don't need the adult situations. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's just.
That was my hope. That was my hope.
So do you have a favorite between Luke and Cash? Because I have to know.
Yes, I do.
You do?
I love both of them, and but yeah, should I tell? I don't know. Should I say? Because we're talking about the first volume. Luke is my favorite. I love Luke.
Oh, okay.
He's my favorite too.
I am always. I mean, I write alphas. That's with romantic suspense. You're almost guaranteed to be writing alphas, and I love writing alphas because I love getting in that headspace. But Luke is so adorably beta that I'm like, hey, I got to do something different, and I kind of fell in love with him along the way.
Mm-hmm.
We call those cinnamon buns.
Yeah, cinnamon buns.
That's what we call the beta heroes, cinnamon buns.
Oh, okay, because
they're sweet and satisfying.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he might be a beta, but he's so heroic.
Yes, he is.
Emotionally. Yeah. He's the most emotionally together person.
Yeah.
Three. Of course. Yeah.
But let's cut Cash a break because he does have some.
I know.
And you know, like I haven't read volume 2 because I wanted to like not let it cloud our discussion of volume 1.
Right.
But like I'm like, okay, something's got to be wrong here because no doctor is going to tell him, oh, just drink as much as you want if that'll help. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be something like seriously like terminal or something happening here.
Oh no.
So this is right.
Yeah. So this is when like I'm like, oh my.
Right.
It's one of those things like, when I went in to see Titanic, like when Titanic came out, and you walk in.
I was thinking,
right, like,
that movie, there would be a different outcome.
Right, it's like I'm crying at the beginning because I know they're all going to die in the end.
Right.
You keep hoping, right, that someone's going to save that ship.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Well, one of our readers warned us because she read all 3 and she said, have your tissues handy. So we have been warned.
I can tell you the 3rd volume is my highest rated book of the 3, but almost every review that's out there, and thank goodness there are hundreds of them, are like, I bawled my eyes out. And they start that on the first line. I'm like, gosh, don't tell people that. They might not buy the book. Leave that until the end. Come on.
I know, but you know what? There's a power in that because you're making people feel.
Yes.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's a big power in that.
And that's true. My romantic suspense is, I love writing those books. I've just written another one that's coming out in November in my Deep Six series, and I'm working on the 4th book in my Deep Six series currently right now. And I can tell you it's a ton of fun to write these characters that are wounded and dark in their own way, but mostly there's tons of bromance in my books. There's the quips and the funny one-liners and lots of action and lots of hot sex. And I don't think many people read my Deep Six series or my Black Knight series and say, grab a box of tissues. They get, get at the end and they're like, woo, that was a fun ride. Right. And it makes me feel, like I said, this was a project of my heart, and I can tell you I'm super proud of this trilogy because I was able to sort of stretch my writing wings a bit. Yeah. And see if I could
scary.
Not just write a fun, funny, rompy, romantic suspense.
Right.
You write a book that was touched on some tougher issues.
Yeah.
And did it scare you to do this, to go into this and know that, it was going to be a 3-parter and, it was going to end on a cliffhanger, something totally different?
Yes. As I was writing it and I was talking to my agent, she kept telling me, she's like, can you make it a 2-book story? It's much easier to sell a 2-book story. Or, I kept getting lots of advice about you should not do this. No one does this. And I just kept saying, well, look at my notebook, like my thick notebook at that point. I was like, it's just going to take this many pages to tell the story like I think it needs to be told. And so I just went with my gut and said, I'm going to write the story. I'm going to put it out there the way I want to put it out, which is 3 books all at once. And I'll let the readership decide. And luckily, they've kind of come along for the ride. I have only had probably a handful of fans who have written in and said, I'm sure it's a great story, but it's just so different from what I expect from you, and I'm just not on board. And which is fine, because as a romantic suspense writer, and as you guys understand, you have your rabid fans who really like for you to stay in your lane. And if you get out of that lane, they kind of give you the side eye. But for the most part, I mean, the vast majority of readers said it's completely different from anything you've written before, but I loved it just as much or more. So that's been very rewarding.
Awesome.
Okay, I have to pop in for 1 second and give some of the comments. So we want to say hi to Laura and Gina, and Kate Ballinger popped in and said that she loves Julie's books and loves this trilogy, and Cindy is awfully glad that you did that. So we also need to do a quick PSA, if you will, because we forgot to tell about our giveaway. So we do have a giveaway this evening, and Diana is going to tell about that real quick, right?
Okay, I'm sorry. I did forget. I was supposed to do that in the beginning, so forgive me. But so there's a gift card, a $20 gift card, and also a book that you'll find out the book at the end because it's our next month's book. So if you ask a question in the comments, we'll read your question. You'll be entered to win either the gift card or the book.
Yeah, a question for Julie.
Yeah, and we will keep this open, I guess, till Sunday. Yeah.
Okay, now that was our short commercial break. Now we can resume with our questions. And who had the next question?
I'll go.
I wet my whistle. I'm ready.
Okay. I absolutely loved the scene where they were in the park and they were going through the time capsule.
Right.
I don't know what it was about. I read it like 4 times after I finished the book. There was just something really poignant about it, and it was just a really great. I don't know if it was. I don't even know if it was a turning point or not. But anyway, it was just a really. I don't know. There was something beautiful about that scene.
The detail.
I think it was because, all along, the 3 main characters, Luke and Maggie and Cash, had a history that they were high school friends and all of that stuff. But you never, because it's written in the present, and all of that friendship and that love and that respect that they had forged years ago, you never really got to see it on the page. And I think as they're going through the time capsule, you actually get to say, sort of take a trip back in time in that time capsule with them, and you get to see them as teenagers, as best friends, and their love for each other and the jokes they shared and all of that stuff on the page for the first time. So I think I put that scene in there for that reason, because I did feel like, we need to get a clearer picture of them when they were, why their friendship has lasted 12 years.
And is that your favorite scene?
Their hiatus, they still feel so close to each other. And so that's why the time capsule scene came in there. And thank you, because that's one of my favorite scenes too. So yay.
Well, it made me wonder if you'd ever done that. Like, had you yourself buried a time capsule with friends?
I have not. Yeah. I wish I had done something really cool and fun as a teenager, but I was too interested in dragging Main Street and chasing boys. So.
So have you ever been to a bachelor auction?
I have not been to a bachelor auction. And the funny thing is so this gives you a little insight into how Julianne Walker's brain works, is that I love the bachelor auction scene in Groundhog Day. Love it. Love that scene. I think it's hilarious. And so for years, I've been thinking to myself, God, I'd love to write a bachelor auction scene into one of my books. And for romantic suspense, it generally doesn't work. Like I said, you got to put alphas who are, carrying pistols and out trying to save the world. So tough to take a break to join a bachelor auction. So yeah, I put it in this book, but it was like Groundhog Day. That was my inspiration.
That was fantastic. And you can so see the women there being all over this guy who, those women,
Right.
But I love the fact that I think her name was Sally, Luke's woman, that she ended up not being quite what you thought she was going to be.
I was just going to say that, Sharon. Yeah.
Sorry, Abbie.
No, but you're right. And you did such a good job of how Luke would defend her and say, no, you don't know her, and I'm like, oh, that just makes me love him more.
Exactly. Because as women ourselves, we know that we get judged on the way we look. Like, that's the first impression, and people make a snap judgment about us. And I really like Sally's character, because she kind of comes off as a bit of a bimbo, and
married the older guy, and
and all of that stuff. And then you get to know her a little bit, and you realize she actually loved her husband. And just because he was older than her didn't mean she was after his money. She was after him because he made her feel whole and worthy for the first time. And so I really do like characters that on the surface appear one way, but once you dig a little deeper and peel that onion, you see that they have a lot of layers. So I like characters like that.
And Maggie is like that. I mean, she seems to be very innocent and naive, but she's tough. She's a tough character.
Right. And Maggie was a tough heroine for me to write, because she's a bit vulnerable and, like you said, a bit naive and gullible, and all of the things that when I'm writing romantic suspense, my heroines are not. They're right there beside the men, generally packing a weapon and holding their own. Yeah. And so she was actually a very tough. Hi, someone's.
There's Todd. I'd like to meet him. There he is.
Hello. Maggie was a tough character for me to write, and I will give all the kudos to my editor who I hired, because writing a woman who was a little more reserved, who was a little bit naive, who was all of these things that I generally don't touch on in my heroines. I didn't nail it the first time. I didn't even nail her the second time. She took a lot of work, a lot of back and forth between me and my editor saying she can be kind and thoughtful and a little bit gullible and a little naive, but she can also be these other things. Like the reason she is she has been pretty sheltered her entire life, except for the loss of her parents and all that kind of stuff. But she can be these other things. So yeah, I wish I could say that like Maggie was fully formed in my head and I just nailed her the first time, but I did not. She took a lot of work to get her character right.
She felt so authentic to me.
She did. I agree.
She did.
Well, I love the fact her real name is Magnolia.
Yeah.
Right. I know, right? Yes.
I love that. Just love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's set in the South, so I had to give a nod to some of those things.
Does it take you a long time to come up with character names?
The crazy thing is that I actually do character outlines. So I kind of, what they look like, what their motivation is, and then they name themselves. I know that's really weird. So many authors like go through the baby books and they really, they get the name first. Like the name informs on who the character is, and that's just not how it is for me. For me, it's like I get to know the character and then suddenly the name is just there. And I'm like, oh, hello, Cash. There you are.
Well, and his name, I love his full name, Cassius.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because he's a bit of a fighter. He's a bit of a pugilist. So there we go.
We have a reader question about the five of us and if we have all met each other before. So Diane, so we all write for source books, and so we have all met each other before at different conferences and different events, and so we do all. Yes, we have all met each other in real life, IRL.
We have another question too. Do each of us prefer to write or read in the first or third person?
Ooh.
I write mainly third dual POV. So I write third, usually the hero and the heroine, and in my cozy mystery, sometimes the villain gets in there too.
Yeah, and I write third with the hero and heroine and a little bit of villain in there.
I write third, but with like 5 POVs. I always have.
You have a lot of POVs.
I have a lot of POVs. Really, I have like 4 or 5, depending on the book. I absolutely love to read first person.
Yeah.
And I have written first person, but I've just not been able to sell any of my first persons.
Hmm.
So I write third, and I'm like you, Sharon. I will read, basically anything.
I know.
Yeah.
And Julianne, we already know.
Right. So my romantic suspenses are all third person. Like Sharon, I write from 5 points of view. It's always the hero and heroine, the villain. And then the 4th and 5th are usually the hero and heroine of an upcoming book in the series, so that readers can kind of get in their head and get to know them a little bit. But with the In Moonlight Memories trilogy, I switched to first person and wrote from 3 points of view, from Luke and Maggie and Cash. And that was my first foray into first person. And like we were talking about earlier, I love reading first person. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different animal than reading third person. But it took me a while. It took me a while to sort of get into that groove of writing first person.
Would you ever do it again, or?
I would love to do it again. Yes, absolutely. I would love to do it again.
Well, and 4 of us write for the same editor at Source Books.
Okay.
Right, because Diana, you wrote for Kat, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Bill wrote
Yeah.
for her.
We're all Deb.
But the rest of us are all Deb.
Yeah.
Feel like that Sesame Street thing, like doesn't belong.
Right. It's not like the other one of these things doesn't belong. That's there.
Yeah.
I can never there.
Yeah. This is also like the blonde grouping too. Sorry, Diana.
Right.
Oh.
Well, I can do one more like this brassy, awful. I was telling all the ladies before we went live that it has been 10 weeks since I've found a salon that will do my hair. The hat is hiding roots that are incredibly embarrassing.
And it's such a cute hat, though. So
Thanks.
I feel like a hat is your signature. I've seen you.
Yeah.
I wear hats a lot, and that's mostly because I'm lazy and I don't want to fix my hair. But this one is like, that's usually just a choice. Like, I'm not going to fix my hair today. I'm just going to put on a hat. This hat, this is a lot.
So Julie, your next deep 6 books coming out in November are you've got 2 more coming out after that, right? Or 3 more?
2 more. So it's a 6-book series. The 3rd one is coming out in November, and then I'm hoping 4 and 5 will be coming out in 2021.
Are they?
So yeah, we're gonna close in on the end of that series. I took a hiatus to do the In Moonlight and Memories, and I got a lot of hate mail from fans being like, "Where's the next book already? Like, you left us hanging." So I'm diligently working on those so that I can feed the fan base.
Oh, good for you. I'm really looking forward. I love that series, so I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm working on the 4th one right now, and I'm having a great time writing it. Like, yeah, I just there's some quippy back and forth between a couple of the heroes and today, and it just made me smile. I'm like, yay!
I love those days.
I know.
So was it hard going from writing Navy guys to writing Army guys?
I had to do research, and it was funny because I thought that it wouldn't be that much different. That it's still a military culture.
It's very different.
It's very different.
Very different.
It was very different. And so I had, like, once I started doing the research and kind of looking, I thought, oh my gosh, like, I need to be careful. I need to get this right, because this is not just a military mentality. Army's very different than Navy. So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, it's very, very tough. I was wondering about that as I was reading. I'm like, oh, because I know you know everything about the Navy. So
right. Yeah, I knew nothing about the Army Rangers, which I have a tremendous amount of respect for them. And now I kind of want to write a romantic suspense series with Army Rangers, because
you should.
Yeah, you should.
You heard it here first.
Right.
Breaking news.
So I loved all your little I don't even know what you call them, the pea picking heart and
Oh yes.
Oh, I love it.
little things like that. And is that
the Southernisms?
yeah?
Right.
So is that like in your family? Are those aunts like your grandmas or your aunts or?
Yeah, a bit. So I was born and raised in Oklahoma, which I tell everybody that Oklahoma is just basically Texas without the attitude. I love Texas. Let me put that out there. But yeah, so, cattle country, lots of cows, lots of wheat fields, and everyone says y'all, and there's a Baptist church on every corner. So yeah, there's a lot of, even though we don't think Oklahoma's not part of the South, there are a lot of those Southernisms, as I would call them, in Oklahoma. But like I said, I lived in New Orleans for short periods of time twice in my life. And when you're not from there, you definitely pick up on them and they kind of stick with you. Yeah. And so, and also, like I told you, when I was keeping that notebook for however many years before I could write the series, anytime I would hear one of those funny little Southernisms, I would, my ears would perk up and I'd write it down. I'd be like, well, that's got to go in a book. That's too good not to.
Julie, once you started writing the series, how long did it take you, like from actually sitting down to write?
So I wrote all 3 books in under a year, in about 10 months.
Wow.
And I think that is just because it had been percolating for so long. So much of the story was already formed in my head. It was just a process of doing the work, getting my butt in the chair and putting my fingers on the keyboard and getting the words on the page. And so, yeah, I definitely wrote this more quickly than I've ever written any book that I've ever written. So
what's the word count of all 3?
So each book is about 85,000 words. And so, yeah, multiply that. We're getting up into 250,000 words to get the whole story.
Wow, good for you.
And you knew what all the breaks were? Did you know where all the breaks were beforehand?
Did you plot it or did you just pants it?
I totally pantsed it, and it was tough, and I had to go back and sort of finesse that first volume a little bit, because it doesn't fall. The first volume doesn't follow the natural story arc, because the story is 3 books long. And so you really don't hit that culminating, it doesn't have the dark moment and the culminating event and all that stuff. You have to read all 3 books in order to get that entire story arc. So yeah, that first book was tough for me in terms of pacing. And, I Monday morning quarterback all my books. I don't know if you guys do that, but there's some, like, if I could go back and redo volume 1, I think I would pick up the pacing a little bit because it's a bit slow. In my opinion,
honestly didn't
Monday morning
notice
quarterback
anything.
but yeah, so I pantsed it the entire way. The only difficulty I had was that it was really a 250,000 word story that I just had to figure out how to split over 3 books.
Wow.
And was it written before you tried to sell it traditionally?
Say that again.
Was it completed before you tried to sell it traditionally?
So the first 2 volumes were completed, and the third, I was working on the third one when I gave it to my agent and said, you know, throw it out there and see if anybody's interested. Yeah, and so they got to read the first and the second book, and like I was telling you guys, I did get some offers, but most of them were wanting to publish the trilogy a year apart. So, you know, volume 1 year, and the next year volume 2 would come out. And you guys have read the book, and it really isn't a traditional trilogy in the fact that there's some sort of satisfying ending after volume 1. There really isn't. It really just feeds right into volume 2. And so I knew if I wanted the readership to continue on and get the entire trilogy, that they probably should be given it in quick order. And so that's why I decided to self-publish it and just put all 3 books out at once. Just give everybody the entire story.
Well, you know, actually,
I guess I would have put it in 1 volume, but then it would have been like a tome on everybody's coffee table. And so, yeah.
This thick.
Right.
so Sarah has actually asked, she said, why did you decide to go traditional versus indie? So she asked the opposite, but you have, you know, originally decided to do traditional. So
right. Yes, that's why is had somebody offered me a debut schedule that I thought did the story justice, I would have jumped on it. It wasn't really a question of money. It wasn't a question of like me wanting to have control over the covers or the back blurbs or anything like that. That wasn't it. I just really felt like there was a way that the story should come out, which was quickly. And no traditional publishing house gave me that offer. So I just decided to do it on my own.
Why do you suppose they wouldn't? Because to me, that's smart to have them all come out like right at the same time.
Right.
Like what's the reasoning?
I think because when I even floated the idea of a 3-month debut schedule, so, you know, volume 1 comes out 1 month, 3 months later, volume 2, the reasoning they gave me, because they were hardcover offers, but the reason they gave me is that the books compete with themselves.
okay.
So that's why. I mean, I don't know if I buy it. I'm not a traditional publishing house. I don't know how all of that works. But that was
more from a marketing standpoint is why.
Right. That would be my assumption.
So when you were writing volume 1, you put a lot of information on Katrina in there.
Yeah.
Now, did you do research into that? Did you know anyone who went through that?
I did, but I can tell you, I just last year, so 2019, I spent March and April in New Orleans, and anybody who lives in the city, has lived in the city, and lived through the storms still talks about it, and they reference everything as before and after.
Wow.
So it is still very much a forefront in people's minds and lives down there. And I really felt like I couldn't set a contemporary series there that covered the span of time, including Katrina, without giving Katrina the due that the locals do. They really do still talk about the storm. It's a defining moment in their lives. There was the before and there is the after.
Wow.
Well, you know, my husband's from Charleston and grew up there, and Hugo hit in '89.
Right.
And still, we go down there, and people still talk about Hugo.
Of course they do. And it's because when a storm that big hits, it changes the landscape.
Everything. Yeah.
The stores that are there are gone. Historical stores that have been there for 100 years are suddenly gone. I mean, I mentioned the Crystal hot sauce bottling plant, which was iconic in New Orleans, and it had been for decades. Is suddenly gone. And so yeah, I mean, their world is upended because of this storm and their loss of property and loss of income and all that kind of stuff. But there really is the before and after. There was life as it had been for decades before, and then a total change in landscape and what life looked like after.
Yep.
The main character, Maggie, she lost her parents
Right.
during that. And that was just a really sad thing that she carries the guilt for that. It's another thing that really made her, you know, your heart bleed for her.
Right. Yeah. She was a child, you know, she was 7th grade when it happened, but not to give too much of the story away, but her parents went out to try to help her best friend who was stuck in a storm surge, and they ended up losing their lives. And so, yeah, she carries the guilt of that. And like I said, you know, we've talked about Maggie, that she's a bit innocent and a bit naive and a bit gullible and all of those things, but she suffered her own hardships and still manages, you know, to have that sweet spirit, which I liked about her. Yeah, that she's been through tough times, but kind of still a sweetheart.
Julie, can you tell us a little bit about the Six Flags? I was there before, years and years and years ago.
Okay.
But I haven't seen it since it's been abandoned.
Yeah, I mean, if you drive by, it's creepy because they haven't done any real clean. I mean, I haven't been in a couple of years, but a couple of years ago, they hadn't done any cleanup. And so you still see like the Mardi Gras huge paper mache Mardi Gras masks, like on their side, half covered in the mud.
Wow.
And yeah, like the bumper cars are all silent and still on the track. And like there are, ponds that used to be, I don't know, like the splash pads or whatever, but it's now a real pond and there are real alligators living in it. So it's an odd place. You go there and you feel like you're on a different planet or in a cartoon, like a really dark, scary cartoon.
Can you just walk through it, or?
No. So I took a little, you know, fictional leeway there. They actually patrol the fence around it. People do sneak in, but from what I've heard, it's a really hefty fine if you get caught.
Oh, wow.
There's YouTube videos. There's a channel that does abandoned places in the United States, and they have drones, and they did one.
Okay.
But it's very cool. It's very sad. It's
incredibly sad because, you know, I mean, we all know what a theme park looks like when it's up and running, and there's children and corn dogs and cotton candy and laughter, and then even all, you know, more than a decade later, kind of stands testament to the storm and the devastation. So you walk into that place and you're like, wow. Yeah, I mean, it's still, they have not completely recovered from it, nor will they ever. I think Six Flags actually either sold it or gave it over to the city of New Orleans, basically saying it would cost us too much money to get it up and running again. And so one of my readers who had read the trilogy sent me a news clipping, I don't know, gosh, probably 6 months ago, where New Orleans was saying that they were going to just completely raise the area, start selling the land off. And then coronavirus hit, and I think that's probably been put on hold. But eventually, I think that the plan for the city of New Orleans is to just clean it up and turn it back into a field or sell the land for plots.
Well, another thing that you do well is you bring music into your book, and obviously you have to do that,
right?
Being set there, but are you at all musical? Do you play, or?
I wish. My mom made me take piano lessons when I was a tomboy at 7 years old, and I was much more interested in being outside and climbing trees and skinning my knee. And I regret that she let me quit. But my family is musical. My nieces and nephews, everyone plays instruments and everyone sings. And I grew up with music. My mother sang in the choir of her church, and my sisters all love music. And so, yeah, I probably have music playing. Well, I play it when I cook in the morning. The only time I don't have it playing is when I'm writing, because then I end up typing the lyrics.
I did too.
I actually, right before I hopped on this interview, had music playing, and I was like, oh gosh, I better turn that off before I get on. So yeah.
Well, you also had that great scene where they went to the chapel. I think was it the St. Louis Cemetery?
Right. No, you went to the wrong spot.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I took a tour of one of them, and I'm getting
St. Roque's. Yes.
Yeah.
And
the chapel with all of the Did you go in? Did you actually go in?
And did you Google it at all and like look at the pictures?
I was there years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I have it. It's very compelling.
That's a good word for it. That's really political of you.
Well, if you've ever been to Lourdes, I don't know if you've ever been to Lourdes, but it's very similar, where you have all the crutches and all of the things that people don't need anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Like glass eyeballs on prosthetic legs and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, it's pretty macabre. You walk in and it's just a tiny little room that's off the main area of the chapel. And, yeah, I mean, I'm not easily spooked. I'm a pretty pragmatic gal myself, but I walked into that place and I was like, yeah. Like,
in the book, they leave them there because they're healed of something, right?
Right, but then that's what the whole, I don't know, myth behind the chapel is. But like a prosthetic leg, are they like a lizard? Did they grow a new one? I don't understand. I'm so confused. Glass eye.
Like they just have an empty socket then. I had the same thought. I'm like, what?
I know.
You just have to go by and
I've seen them with my own two glass eyes. That there's glass eyes there.
So, Julie, you have a habit of traveling for your books, right? Because I remember reading, it was either a blog post or something when the first Deep Six books came out, and you were talking about how you went to study the area. Didn't you go to the Caribbean?
I did. I actually took a 2-week sailing. Like I figured if I'm going to write about these guys who dive and sail and do all that stuff, I should be able to write about it, with a tiny bit of knowledge. And so, yeah, I try to make sure that I visit all the places that I'm writing about. And just between the two of us, sometimes I decide that I want a vacation somewhere. And then I'm like, man, I'll just set a book here. Yeah. So it's not like, form doesn't always follow function for me. Sometimes it's the opposite way.
Well, I just remember reading that, and then I was reading the books, and I knew you had mentioned, I can't remember when, that you had lived in New Orleans briefly, and I thought, I wonder if she went back, like just use that as an excuse.
I did. I had lived there. I mean, I'd traveled there multiple times, but I'd lived there for a couple of months before I started writing the series. And then when the series was mostly complete, like I was finishing up the 3rd volume, I went back for those 2 months and made sure that I felt like I did it justice and that I got it right.
So and you went back and you were writing in those 2 months?
Say that again?
So when you went back for those 2 months, is that when you were actually writing the book during that time?
Yeah, I actually finished the 3rd book while I was living there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
That is truly the writer's life.
I want. But key to that is no kids. Like it's that's how you have to work that.
Right.
My kids are a little older now, so
that's good. Or that. Wait until your kids are out of the house.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you have any plans to travel after we get out of quarantine and the world sort of goes back to semi-normal?
I am. So I actually, from here, I'm currently living in Nashville, Tennessee, and I will be here until the end of June. And then after that, I am going to Portland, Oregon, where I will spend a couple of months. And, and so, I figure July and August in Oregon is
beautiful.
Yeah, pretty good place to be. And I haven't decided past that. I know that I'll spend November and December back in Oklahoma because that's where my family is, but I have September and October to choose from. So if anybody has some destination that they say is wonderful and everyone should go live there for a little bit, let me know.
Colorado. Come see me.
What's that? Colorado?
Yeah.
I did Boulder last year for June and July. Boulder,
Please
Colorado.
don't judge Colorado by Boulder.
Say that again?
Don't judge Colorado by Boulder.
Oh, I know, it's super crunchy, but I spent time in Colorado Springs and I went to Denver and all that.
Good.
So I got to see, and I'm actually, my family we rented a mountain chalet in Breckenridge for the 4th of July week. And so, yeah, I'll get to do Breckenridge for a week there. I think everything's I know Colorado is opening up, but I think a lot of the fun stuff that we had planned to do is probably still going to be closed. So I suspect it's going to be a lot of mountain hikes and card games and cooking at home, which is, that's great for a family vacation.
Pretty great, yep.
The mountains of, Jenny laughs when I say this, the mountains of Virginia. They're actually quite beautiful in the fall.
Yes, they are. So I just did 2 months. So before I came to Nashville, I was actually in Asheville, North Carolina. So I was right there on the Blue Ridge Mountains, and they're beautiful. They are very different from the Rockies, but nonetheless beautiful.
Yeah. They're beautiful.
And I'm thinking, there's nowhere in Ohio I'd really completely recommend.
I lived in Chicago, Illinois, so I know what the Midwest is all about.
Well, you going back to Chicago, Julie? Are you going to go back?
That is not my plan. Like, I did my 13 years in Chicago, and I loved it. I love the city and just constant action. There's always something to do, but I'm a little long in the tooth at this point. Like, I am ready to settle down a bit after I do all this traveling and maybe somewhere a little quieter than Chicago. So, like I said, I loved it there. It will always, be a home to me. 13 years is a long time to spend in a place, and I'll be a Cubs fan until the day I die. But yeah, I'm done.
Are you a city girl or a country girl?
So I grew up in rural Oklahoma, like riding horses bareback and throwing cow patties at my neighborhood boys that we met. And then 13 years in Chicago. So I don't really know what I am anymore. I feel like I've just sort of assimilated some attributes of both, but I can tell you that my happy place is outside. Like, I really love to go hiking and camping and horseback riding and riding my bicycle. And so, yeah, if someone told me you can live in a city for the rest of your life or you have to live in the country for the rest of your life, at this point in night, I'd probably choose the country. Not probably, I would. That's where my heart is now.
Yeah. So when you go to Oregon, are you planning lots of hikes, or?
I am, but that may be the only thing I can do. I mean, I don't know what's going to be open while I'm there. So yeah, tons of hikes. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been, but it's beautiful. The city's beautiful, but the scenery is beautiful. It's a quick drive out to the coast, which is beautiful. So yeah, my dog will be getting a lot of exercise.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Sounds like a great time. And what is the name of the Deep Six books that's coming out in November?
November, it's the third Deep Six, and it's called Ride the Tide.
Ride the
Tide. And I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. I'm terrible at titling. Like, I don't know how you ladies feel about it. I tried probably the first 6 books that I turned in to Source Books, our publisher, and tried to title them myself, and they were always like,
Yeah, I never got to explain my title.
Same here.
Yeah.
No matter how good I thought it was.
Right, I know. And so I've just given up. I just number them at this point. And I'm like, number 3, coming your way.
But you titled this book, Memories of
Enlightened Memories. I did. And the only reason I felt like it may have been a decent title is it fits the book. And so
it's beautiful. And it was a great book. I'm already on the second one. I've already started it.
Yeah,
I won't give anything away, but I think this isn't giving anything away, that you have the letters that she
I love that. I read the snippet.
the little snippets that she wrote to them every day. Yeah.
I love it. It's
thank you. Those were fun to write, actually.
And Julianne, one other thing. I always, like, when I'm reading, I always highlight, like, just pieces that I think are just beautifully written, and then
I do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. To just go back and, like, when I'm having one of those moments where I cannot string 2 words together, like, to read somebody else's good stuff and then hope to get inspired. And there were so many just little sentences and paragraphs that were just so beautifully crafted.
Oh, thank you so much.
that I was just like, oh my gosh, just how did she come up with these just beautiful words right there? Like,
Thank you so
so
much.
there was a lot of that in there.
There
I
was.
think that was sort of bottled up inside, had been for a while, because writing romantic suspense, it's really not, you can write some really good scenes and some really good, but you try
I
not
know
to
what you
be
mean.
flowery. You really
Yeah.
can't, the reader's
Yeah.
not there for that. And so, like I said, I think it was bottled up inside me for so long that I just was like, "Ugh, take it."
Hey, we have a question for you, or for all of us, I guess. As Gina is asking if we all have any input on our covers. Can you hear us laughing, Gina? You know?
No,
No.
I don't get not my
No.
covers, not my titles, nothing.
Right.
Well,
yeah,
I
no.
do on my indie stuff. I mean, I have
Indie stuff.
I have
Right.
13 indie books, so I get control of those. But otherwise, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They choose, the publishers choose the title, and the publishers choose the cover, and you just better hope you like it. You know?
Is that
And,
Julianne? Do they give you any?
a little bit. I can like, if I absolutely loathe it, you know, I like, and like, this is horrible, I would never buy this book off the shelf, then they'll go, okay, well, we'll go back to the drawing board. But yeah, for the most part, it's sort of sent my way and is like, we're going with this, so we hope you like it.
Yeah. That's what I get too. Well, it has been so lovely having you here with us. Thank you
Thank you guys so much.
And
This has been
hopefully
wonderful.
you'll come back again.
Absolutely. Anytime, I'm invited.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Bye.
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 All right. So we are moving on to are we going to do the questions first, or do we do?
Let's do the questions first.
Okay.
Questions first, yeah.
All right. And somebody's got the music.
Questions first. Okay.
This is your guys' quiz.
Quiz for the month for Abbie, Sharon, Diana, and Jennie. Okay.
Mhm.
And this is tied into next month's book. So, first question. Which author is so bad at firing her weapon that she can't hit the broadside of a barn? In fact, she has to have a laser guide on her gun. Who grew up on a farm and used to shoot swallows with a BB gun? Who was given an engraved gun to celebrate her book debut? And who is starting her concealed carry class in July, which was changed because of COVID? Okay, so
you can see that all of these questions have a little bit of a theme.
Mm-hmm.
A theme that might have to do with get ready for this.
Our next book.
Yes, maybe our next. Oh, crud! Hold, please.
Diana, you're gonna load the poll up for us, right? Like you do so nicely.
Yes. I will put all the questions in the group.
Okay.
Oh shoot! Okay, tiny technical difficulty.
It's fine. We can always sing.
Talk amongst yourselves. Hold.
This
So
ran smoothly when we practiced it.
I
swear.
Okay. We're really excited about the next book and the next author for June, and we hope you guys will like it. Maybe we should just sing. We should just
Maybe we should just sing it.
yeah.
I'm not,
Ooh, you know what? We have a guess. We have a guess for our quiz questions.
Okay. All right.
So
Somebody's already guessed, but
okay, the first question was which one? Which one, Sharon?
the first one was what author is so bad she can't hit the broadside of a barn?
Okay, so Leisha guessed Jennie for that one, and for number 2, which was that one?
That was who used to shoot swallows with a BB gun.
That was me. Leisha thinks that's me. And what's number 3?
Number 3 was who was given an engraved gun on her book debut.
Leisha guessed Diana.
And
then
the third one is who's starting her concealed carry permit class in July.
and Leisha guessed Sharon. And we're not telling though yet. But I will tell you, you got at least one right.
Okay.
You got at least one right. Okay, so here I think I'm ready for my.
Are you ready?
I think I'm ready.
You don't have to sing. Yes.
Good. I'm not singing.
Come on.
Jenny, how hard is this to do?
I know, because it's like it's
You
it like blocks it out. It must be explicit or something. I don't know. Oh, dang it. Okay, never mind. I'm just singing. Bad boys.
Bad boys.
Bad boys. What you
What you
gotta
gotta do?
What you
What
gotta
you gotta
do?
do when it comes for you, bad boys?
The next book is Paige Tyler's Wolf Under Fire. Woo-hoo!
God.
Oh my gosh, I can't my glasses. I can't see.
Love you. Love you. Thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you next month.
Yes,
Bye.
bye.
Everybody.